Welcome, everyone, to this week on the 6873 show. We have an exciting episode where we're actually going to be interviewing Pagans in VR. Please stay with us. I think this is going to be an exciting, very informative episode. So anyway, let's get on with the show. My name is Captain Ren, and our other hosts are...
I'm Rossi, and we have...
I'm Ion, and this is...
Tucky, of course. And welcome to tonight's show. We have some interesting guests here. We have IAmCompuBears, Sam the Catman, and Trey the Druid. See, I can mess up too. The Druid. There we go. And, well, again, we are venturing outside of other creators besides in VRChat. The Pagans. Quick question. Can anybody answer me, what is it to be a pagan?
So I can answer that question. So the academic definition of pagans is that it's an umbrella term for people who practice religions or have spiritual beliefs that are not connected to Abrahamic religions, like Christianity, Judaism, and Islam. So technically, even Hindus and Taoists could be considered pagans, but typically, in the English-speaking world, the people who identify with the word pagan tend to be people who practice religions that are connected to nature in some way or have beliefs that nature is sacred in some way. Not all of us. For some it looks more like reverence for the universe or simple pantheism, the belief that everything in the universe is sacred. But generally speaking, if you are in the United States or Europe, and you hear someone identify themselves as a pagan, the largest group of pagans in those areas are Wiccans, followed by Druids, which I'm a Druid. And then in the United States, at least, the next largest groups are usually Santorians, Hoodoo practitioners, powwowers. Oh, and of course, Native Americans. They're way, way up there as well.
So it's a big mix of a lot of different branches, if you might say.
Usually, it's typically a class, when you say paganism, of being more than one god, of believing in more than one god, because the Abrahamic religions, meaning Christianity, Judea, and Islam, believe in only one god. So it's either believing in more than one god or having different gods as part of your religion.
But we're not all polytheists. There's not a consensus, if you will. In reality, the reason all of these different people are associated with the word pagan is because that's what the Romans called us. When they would go into a place and take over, and after they became Christian, everybody who wasn't that was called pagan. So now the neo-pagan community, that's what we are, has reclaimed the word, and it's something where we look for similarities between each other rather than differences, because in all honesty, there's so few of us, we tend to stick together.
I was wondering, because you said... Oh, you go ahead.
So I should say there's I've got some friends that are I use the term Wiccan, and they follow the belief, is it the three crones?
The triple goddess?
I'm not. Yeah, the old lady, the mother, and the is it the child?
The maiden, the mother, and the crone.
Mother, crone.
That's the one. Yes, that's it. And when they were explaining it to me, it just sounded so beautiful.
Yeah, because it's like kind of like the Christianity, like the Father and the Son and the Spirit.
Right. So
kind of.
Where did they get that inspiration?
Yes.
Exactly.
Yeah. I also realized that paganism, just like Christianity, there's hundreds of different sects of Christianity. You have Lutheran, you have Catholic, you have baptism. Well, in paganism, both in Wiccan as well, Wiccan is considered part of paganism, but Wiccan also has different branches of it, just as the Druid religion has different variations of the Druid religion. There's different organizations within each of those. So you have different sects within the pagan religion. Even within some of the subgroups, you still have that broken down even further.
Just like how you can have Christians, but you could have Catholics and Presbyterians and Baptists and all of the different, it's different flavors around the same culture, essentially.
Yeah.
That's actually a good way to put it.
Interesting.
Different flavors of the same community.
The same thing, yeah.
And I actually like that. I actually like that. That's a good description. So yeah.
So once I
even
was kind of curious.
between-
Go ahead.
I know from people that I have been talking with that when you say the word pagan, they say, "Oh, those are witches," and you guys must have heard that word once or twice when
Witches.
it comes to
Yes.
Witches. And actually, when you say that, Wiccan is and several branches of Wiccan are considered witches. So in that sense, it is appropriate, but they take it with pride. They're very prideful of the fact that they are witches. There's nothing bad about that. It's only bad if you make it the connotation bad. So yes, but again, it's one of the flavors of it. It doesn't encompass all pagans and druids, which Trey and I are, would not be classified in that. But we only say that because we, in our Pagans in VR, we recognize all pagan religions and we try and teach all of them. We give people a chance to come forward and express how they feel spiritually and what preference that they have and how they view it. So it's also a learning experience for everybody, at least in Pagans in VR, because we do want to make sure we keep that open to everyone and don't single out any particular group.
Absolutely.
I like that.
And to tack on to what you were asking, Toki, Wicca or witchcraft and the word witch is again another one of those things that in the pagan community has been reclaimed because it was traditionally a pejorative created by Christians to describe people who practice pagan religions or old traditions. So now there's a whole section of the community that identifies with the word witch, and that's a source of power for them. And to clear up the confusion between Wicca and witchcraft, all Wiccans are witches, but not all witches are Wiccans. Wicca is a specific method of practicing witchcraft. It's a 20th century reconstructive religion. So I hope that clears it up for you.
It does. Because all I hear is from others, witches. Yeah, but no.
So the term warlock, where does that come from?
So that's another term. Go ahead.
Sorry.
Okay. So warlock is considered a male version of a witch, and so that's where it comes from. Although it was primarily more attributed to people who do magic, as in wizards or that kind of stuff. So that's where the warlock comes in, but it can also signify a male witch within, again, the Wiccan religion. But
It doesn't
Yes,
mean necessarily. Oh, sorry.
And
No.
the word warlock means oath breaker, and traditionally it was used as a pejorative again, and it's still kind of controversial in the pagan community. Generally speaking, if you let people self-identify, they'll tell you how they want to be referred to as.
Mm.
I was gonna say because there are male witches as well. Like I personally identify as a male witch because I feel like the magic between warlock and witch can be very different. So you can have a male witch, and I think you can also have a female warlock, especially now with gender roles being so dispersed these days. So
yes, and likewise, witchcraft is a whole different form of paganism than druidry. And, CompuBear and I are druids. We come from different backgrounds of druidry, different understandings of druidry, but we're still druids nonetheless. And to an outsider, we might appear much the same as witches, and a lot of the things we believe are very similar, very close. A lot of the practice we do is very similar as well. We celebrate the same holidays more or less. We worship the same gods more or less. It's just a different method, a different way of studying, a different way of doing things. And the easiest way I can break it down is if you were to go way back into ancient times, the witches are the medicine women, the doulas, the women that help women give birth, and the keepers of the medical traditions. Druids, their work was happening with kings and leaders. They were kind of like a class of priests, and they acted as a judiciary branch to their culture, and they preserved the myths and studied them and did all those things. So again, revering the same things but not doing the same exact thing with all the information.
Very interesting.
Yeah, it's
There's
quite
a
interesting as well,
lot.
because I know in England we have what they call the Mayday Festival, which is, if I have this correct, it was my friend that was telling me about it, that the Mayday Festival was originally a pagan celebration, because the maypole, it was to do with fertility or something.
Yes,
Because the maypole was actually having the virgins dance around, and it was supposed to be to represent a phallic.
it's a phallic
item.
symbol.
Oh
Yeah.
my.
Yes,
Yeah,
and it's
Because
she
Denmark
always
has it too.
and she always
We
used to
actually
laugh
did a-
because
we
she
actually
always used
did
to
a
laugh because it was the Christians that were saying it's a Christian holiday, and it's not.
and this year we actually did a Mayday celebration in VR. We created kind of a poll, and we the new Mayday celebration isn't so much virgins or young women. It's actually both men and women. And the celebration is actually, when you do the Mayday poll, you actually interweave. So you're interweaving the people together. You're interweaving the young couples together. So you kind of do a
They
weaving
would
pattern.
crisscross.
We couldn't quite do that in VR, but we did still do kind of a little bit of a Mayday dance as well, and celebrated that portion of it. And it's supposed to, also bring good wishes. We've come out of winter. Remember, most of our religions, whether Christian or not, are still based on pretty much living by, the culture, living by nature, living by that kind of, living by the calendar. And so May Day is the first day of spring, when many young people have come out for the first time out of winter. They're coming to sometimes even meet some of the other neighbors for the first time, since they've come into that period into their lives. And so this is a chance for them to intermingle and get to meet each other as they do this dance around the bowl. Trey can tell you the actual more.
Yeah, so it's Mayday is what the Christians called it. The Celts called it, or pagan people call it, Beltane. It's hard to say, what exactly the traditions were that the Celts were doing, because not a lot survives. All we really have is what the Romans wrote down, and they didn't write a lot of things that are necessarily reliable. They wrote it from their Roman perspective.
Yeah.
But it's when spring is in its height. We have you have to consider that all of these traditions come out of a time when humans were very much connected to growing crops and subsisting off of the land. So most of these festivals are harvests of one kind or another. And this is around the time of May 1st. That's when a lot of animals begin to breed. So you have to make the connection. This is when animals that we're eating, that are sustaining us, are starting to do this. It's that whole, again, connecting back to the land. So this is a time to celebrate the fertility of the land. And we think that people probably, had a lot of sex around the time of the holiday. There's a lot of conjecture about that. Because obviously, but we don't know a whole lot for certain. For neo-pagans, again, everything we're doing is a reconstruction of what we know, and the rest is kind of conjecture. So for many of us, it is still recognized, the maypole is a phallic symbol. It's also pretty common to see red and white ribbons representing the masculine and the feminine. Red for blood, the white for semen. It's a whole thing. And we discussed briefly the gender role piece of this. That's kind of way out the window. The gender binary that was mentioned, that's a modern understanding, a modern Western understanding of gender. We don't really know that the Celts viewed it that way. They probably didn't, because they had warrior women and chieftains and so on. There's nothing really to suggest that it was, if you have this anatomy, you have to do XYZ thing. Again, and we really don't know because they didn't write anything down. So for us neo-pagans, it's more about celebrating the change in the seasons and honoring the gods for the fertility of life.
Yeah.
I also think that it could have been, like you said, there are not a lot written down, but when the word Wiccan or witches or such was mentioned way back in the time, I could imagine that a lot of what was written down, like rituals and stuff like that, would have been destroyed because of that. Like the Christians and stuff,
Certainly.
like, believed, oh, this is black magic, it's cursing, it cursed everything, and blah blah blah. The whole witch hunt.
They
if you
would
might say.
knock down temples and build churches on top of them. So that is certainly true.
But there was also the wasn't there the great book burning that that was done in Italy.
Well, there and a lot of that we know also comes from stories. They were a big believer in telling stories and passing those stories down, because stories were not something that could be destroyed. Stories were not something that you could just, you could kill the people, but stories could be passed on. In many cases, the trees that they were written on, or the stones that all of this information was meant to give us in the future, was all destroyed by the Romans, especially in the Celtic area. When they came into the Celtic area, they destroyed all of the information that we had. So some of the stories still survive, and some of the ancient Celtic dialect stories have been written down that we think have traveled through time in this. And that was part of what a druid's job was to learn these stories so that they could pass it down to their children and their children's children. Which is, the only way it could travel back then.
And we know that that's true, the part about what the Romans destroyed, because they wrote about it. When they conquered Gaul and then hopped over the Channel and started taking over southern England, they wrote quite a bit about what they did, because it was, the typical Roman showing of their military prowess and everything. And we know that groves of oak trees were sacred to the Druids in England and Gaul. And one of the first things they would do was come in and cut all those groves down. And basically, the Druids were treated differently than other groups that the Romans conquered before they were Christian, because the Druids actively encouraged people to resist the Romans. So the Romans considered them enemy number one, and they did rout them out of Gaul, and then eventually through southern England, and they never made it. They never took over Scotland. They never made it into Ireland. But certainly that influence changed a lot of what we know because of, killing people and everything. And also, they pushed the Celts out of Europe or Romanized them. A lot of them were jumping over the channel into England, running away from the Romans for a long time. So we have this kind of mixture of cultures, and then trade is happening at the same time. And then eventually, when Rome takes over southern England, you have an isolation of these Celtic people from each other between the Romanized Celts and then the Celts who were not conquered, like the Picts or the Caledonians, depending on how you refer to them, and the Irish. And you have languages in southern England that started to become Romanized, and then the other Celtic people's language developed on its own. So that's why now you have all these different languages in such a small space, and it's made it quite well. And then after the Romans left, you had the Anglo-Saxons, and then later the French, which also changed and created English as we know it. But Irish and Gaelic and Manx and Cornish and Welsh all have a common root language that they call Brythonic. And they all developed on their own, and because of that, we have had to, or I should say, academics have had to trace back and figure out that these languages were related to each other, because they didn't know, because they had changed so much over time. But so far, all that really survives written down are texts that were written down typically by monks or people of influence during the Middle Ages of folk tales. And the folk tales outlay like who the gods were and their stories. And it's so changed over time because of the influence of Christianity and the Romans. In the Welsh text, the gods, which is called the Mabinogi, which is like the Book of Royal Sons, is basically what that means in English. The gods aren't even referred to as gods because the church was writing these stories down. So they would take the folk tale and they would Christianize it, but you can still see the story there. So I know I went way off the rails with all of that.
No, that's fine, because I was actually thinking about the Christianity and when they went on the Crusades, like kind of forcing their beliefs on other people. So like you said, you could see that it's written mostly to be like how do you say, the Christian way, if you might say like that, but you still have that little spice in there. You can actually tell the difference a little bit. I know,
and we're still dealing with that.
Yeah, it is.
Do you think it was possibly back then that they kind of did it that way as a way of preserving a remnant of it versus having everything annihilated?
There's speculation, but it's all conjecture. It's no way to really know. But for a lot of the people, these were just viewed as cultural stories, less than religious. But, you go far enough back, those lines are pretty blurred.
Yeah.
So one thing I was going to ask. Oh, go ahead.
No.
So you have a very rich history, and you have some amazing rituals and stuff that you perform. But your group is Pagans and VR. How does being a pagan actually transfer over to the virtual world, and how is that done? I know I can see the benefits of doing it in virtual reality simply because
Mhm.
you can gather so many more people. But does that have any impact on how you perform your rituals?
So, amazingly, there's some amazing stuff that we can do in virtual reality that we can't do in the real world. We can create worlds that mimic or copy where we would like to normally have the ritual, which would not necessarily be possible in the real world. For instance, our Stonehenge, which is very sacred to us as a place. We have a recreation of that, and we hold many of our rituals in Stonehenge as well. For recently our Harvest Festival, we did it out in wheat, a giant wheat field, and so we were able to share that. We've done a ritual inside a cauldron, which
Really?
certainly wouldn't be, with boiling water. So that's certainly not something that you would be able to do in the real world. And so
Yeah.
it allows us to be able to take and kind of mold the situation around us so that we feel like we're more in contact with the ancient people or doing the ancient rituals the way they might have done it, which we would not normally be able to do. So that's one of the really huge things about VR. And we notice that when people come together in a VR sense, they are able to connect with each other just as if they were standing together one to one. You still have all those energies that connect to the earth to connect to each other, because most of these religions believe that all energy, all people are connected together. And so this actually gives us a way to tie into each other, to connect to each other. So those same energies are there within our rituals, and we can do that in VR where we wouldn't necessarily be able to do it. It's not the same as doing it over Zoom. And in many people, before even COVID, we're in isolated parts of the country where there weren't a lot of pagans. And so this allows us to bring those people in and create communities within the pagan world that would not necessarily have been able, they can be a part of. And community is just such a big important part of paganism, and having that community to share it with and be able to connect with each other and connect with the earth. So all of those things help us create more of a pagan world within VR.
And also, because of what is possible in VR, there's a lot of pagan people who are what we refer to as in the broom closet, meaning they don't talk about the fact that they're pagan. They hide it because of either discrimination at work or in their family, among their friends, because there's still a lot of places where it's very taboo to be anything other than Christian in reality.
Still has its stigmatism.
So when you're here, you choose your avatar, you choose your name. Nobody knows who you are unless you decide to reveal that information. So it is really the most ideal safe space for people like us who, just want to get together to either practice our religion or just talk about it and not be discriminated against. VR allows for that.
You must
We
get
also
people
carry
from a
onto
lot
our
of different countries. Oh, sorry.
We do. No, I was just saying it, and it also continues over into our Discord chats as well, where we have books that you can, help you, guide you if you want to look at that people have recommended. And then we get into chats and discussions. So it gives them access to a community almost on a whenever needed basis, whenever they want to talk about it. So you have that 24 hours as well. Going back to
that's ultimately
that gives us access to everybody around the world because it's 24 hours and it's not just during certain hours of the day. There's discussions going on all over the world on our Discord.
And that's ultimately
The
why
internet
we
is-
founded the channel, is so that pagan people could find each other and learn from each other. And also people who might not necessarily identify as pagan, even if they want to just come in and ask questions or learn more or all those types of things. It's an open room and we don't discriminate. And To be honest with you, I modeled Pagans in VR after an organization called CUPS, which is the Covenant of Unitarian Universalist Pagans. And I'm a Unitarian Universalist. And if you don't know what that is, it's a denomination that exists primarily in the United States. And it's basically the church of all religions. It's universalism. And there's even atheists and humanists as well. And CUPS is kind of associated, it's an organization associated with the church, and it's specifically for pagans, and they operate very similarly to how we do. It's for pagan people, and all the different flavors of paganism are welcome, and there's a particular focus on earth-centered spirituality. So that's what we're trying to do, but on in a different way, because it's all in VR now. and there's so many things that we can do in VR that we can't do in real life, just because in real life it costs money, or we have to travel places, or there's people who are too old to go places, or they're in a chair and they can't roll out into the middle of a field, or whatever. In VR, everything is possible.
Nice.
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
I was going to say, just out of intro, you mentioned about having it was Stonehenge that really sort of perked my interest. A world where you've got a replica of Stonehenge. Obviously, I'm British. It's right. And also Stonehenge isn't
from
actually
Yorkshire.
that far away from me.
Very cool.
So yeah, Stonehenge in Salisbury. It's not that far away from me. It's actually a really nice trip down there, especially on the bike. It's amazing. Nice country roads, bendy, twisty roads. Anyway, sorry, I digress. Have you actually managed to go to places like that in real life?
I wish I had, but no. I haven't been able to get to some of those places. I've been busy raising children. So that's taken up quite a bit of my life. I've raised 14 of them.
Yeah.
This being my youngest of all of them. And I've raised them in a pagan belief, but they were welcome to believe in whatever they wanted to. We just opened the door for them to believe what they wanted. I'm grateful that I have at least one child that followed me through that door. And actually I have a few others that did too. But so it's partially caring it for us, but it's partially for the younger generation, being able to expose the younger generation to this. Because as I said, we as Druids used to tell stories, and those stories would be passed down to the younger generation, and then they would carry it on and pass it down. So it's up to us now to turn around and share those stories and share those experiences and learning and having them ask questions in a manner that is more appealing to them. And so one of the reasons we're in VRChat is we'd like to be able to do that. We're going to have our first pagan ritual here on the 21st at 8:30 Eastern time in VRChat, so that we can have more of a younger generation come in and learn from us as well, and be able to share that in here as well. So it's just as important that it be carried on.
So being such an amazing virtual community and stuff like that, especially like you actually had pointed out, for a lot of people who aren't able to go to these places or have the time to, go to meetings and stuff, but having this much larger audience, have you seen a lot of people actually come and join the pagan community because of being in VR?
Yes, we've had people who return because they're interested and they have questions or they want to come and observe. But the goal of what we're doing isn't to try and get more people to be pagan. So I think that's a distinction we have to make, is that we don't proselytize. We don't try to get anybody to believe what we believe. If you don't, that's fine. If you do, that's fine too. So that's a huge distinction between paganism in general and other religions, is that our gods aren't looking to be everybody's gods. That's not how it works. It's a mystery tradition, and it's a lot of work.
It's
I can
opening it
imagine.
up so that you can do it. When I do my tarot card readings, I do free tarot card readings in AltSpace. And so you're welcome to come and find me there and talk to me during my business hours, which are 10 a.m. To 12 a.m. Pacific time. You can find me in AltSpace, and I do free tarot card readings. But I get a lot of people that stop in and go, "Oh, I was wondering what this was about." And they're questioning. They maybe even come from a Christian background, but they're questioning. They want to know more.
Mhm.
So, do we make people pagan, or do we change them? Do we get more pagan people? That's really not our intention. It's to just kind of be an open book, so that people can learn, and find the spirit that's in them, and find the spirit that guides them, and the god or gods that develop for them. Me, I'm pagan Jewish Taoist, which sounds like a conflict between Judea and paganism, but I believe that there's one God, and that he can be summed in many things: love, spirit, energy that creates in all of us, that created this, but that there are spirits that have come before us that help guide us. Many people refer to them as gods, but to me they're spirits and they're angels. But this is what I have found for me. And I don't try to tell you how to believe. I just give you the tools and the knowledge and where you can learn from, and expose as many people as possible so that they have the opportunity to find it for themselves.
Yeah,
Have you
and
actually been? Oh, continue.
Oh, sorry. I was just gonna say, and see, I'm also a druid, but my background in druidry is much different than that. I'm a polytheist. I worship the old Celtic gods. I'm also a universalist, so I think that all religion is kind of very personal. The divine presents itself to everybody in its own way. It's very individual. Basically, I think we're all living in the same universe, but we all have differences of perception, and nobody could really tell you what's true for you. And that's kind of a hallmark of paganism. That's kind of what differentiates us from organized religion. Really, is a lot of us are not a part of organized religions, and we don't believe that anybody should dictate belief to you. You should have the ability to discover these things for yourself. But I'm not a monotheist by any means. I do think that all of these energies and spirits and gods and guides connect back to a universe that we're all connected to and we're all living in. But I don't believe in a single personality or like a single creator god. And druidry is complicated because it can be a religion and it can be a philosophy that's about being connected to nature. For me, it is both. So even within druidry, there's a lot of diversity of belief. And I'm a member of 2 druid orders and 1 druid group here in the United States, and even each of the orders has a different interpretation of things. So I'm primarily a member of the British Druid Order and the Order of Bards, Ovates, and Druids, but I'm also a member of the Druid Alliance of North America, and they're all very, very different in how they operate.
I think Sam wanted to say something.
No, I'm okay.
No?
No.
Okay.
No,
Okay.
no.
Okay. You were shaking your head. I thought you'd wanted to add something in there. So
to go back to the whole alt space, Ren and I was actually in alt space, and we were with you when you did a ritual, and I will say it was quiet, it was beautiful. I was mesmerized by the whole thing, and you see how open-minded pagan people can be, and you respect everybody's beliefs. I mean, today's society, when we have the Christians and other beliefs like that, they tend to crash a lot against each other, like
Mm.
who is the real
Yes.
god and blah blah blah. So I really like the pagan faith beliefs, sorry, where you kind of create your own, like, who is my god? Do I have more gods than one? What do I believe? I felt more welcome in your group when we witnessed that than anywhere else, actually. The love that was shown, and yeah, the viewers should have been there. I mean, I loved it. It was so positive, and when you guys
Thank
were
you,
were
thank
were
you.
done with the ritual, I felt a sense of relief. Like I wasn't sad or angry or happy. It was calm. So I don't know if it did
Mhm.
something for me, but I just felt like it's nice. To put it simply, it's nice.
Well, each of our rituals, we have a theme to them, and it's based on could be the holiday, whether it's new moon or open full moon. The one on the 21st will be open full moon, which we're doing both here in VR chat and in AltspaceVR, one right after the other. So you can attend either or both. But each one has kind of a theme to it, and even within that theme, we try and do activities as well. So we do some interconnection activities between people if they want to participate. And we try to use it as a teaching so that we expose you to some history about it, or what this particular season ritual is within it, and what it means, and what did it mean for them in the past, and what does it mean for us now. Soon you feel the water flow around you. Feel yourself soaking up the water. Now feel the warm sun come out and dry you off. Gives you that life, that sustaining energy. Your arm.
Mm-hmm.
Well, kind of what you were saying to that too, that even if it's not your belief, like that's part of the inclusivity, is even if that's not your belief or something, you can still benefit from it and benefit from the ideas, the inclusivity of it, which I think is
Mm-hmm.
very good about the community. Like, you don't have to be part of the community to benefit from it, and it's not a problem to benefit from it even if
True.
you're not part of the community.
Mm-hmm.
Mm.
True.
And
So are
just
these,
to tack on.
Oh, go ahead.
Sorry, I was just gonna say, just to tack on to what you were saying about how you've been treated by different religious groups, particularly Christianity.
Mm-hmm.
Those religions have evolved and have been used by societies to control people, and paganism is the antithesis of that. The example I always use is go into any Catholic church and attend a mass. There's going to be a priest on an altar way up in the front in a place that you can't walk, and he's the only person who has, the direct access to God if you believe the host is Jesus and all that. And
Mm-hmm.
that's not how it works in paganism. We are all on equal footing. We're all members of this universe and to be respected equally. Now, we have different grades in certain traditions, which just basically denotes how much you've studied, but that doesn't indicate worth. And in Druidry specifically, we're very big about, like the Wiccans have a typical coven structure. A coven is a group of witches or Wiccans, and they'll have a high priest and a high priestess. And those are like the people that carry out the ritual. In Druidry, we don't do that at all, because if you're running a ritual, you're facilitating. You're not at a place that is above or below anybody else. We're a community.
And we do have in the group that we have, because we also do classes on Saturday in Altspace. We do a 101 class where we kind of teach a little bit, and we have other people come in and teach a little bit. But we do have we have people that are Native American. We have people who are Wiccan. We have
Ceremonial
Norse
magic.
Norse god magic. We've had all kinds of those groups come in and explain to us a little bit about their specific flavor of paganism. So we're open, and even when we do our rituals, we're very careful to not denote specific gods or goddesses or specific names unless we have, and we do have times in our rituals when you can say them out loud for yourself. But as the ritual itself, we try to make sure that we keep it open for everybody. And people who are there that maybe just believe in nature, who are just connected to nature and want to be a part of that aspect of the rituals and the nature connection to it.
Nice. You had mentioned that you actually have a ceremony here coming up that's being practiced in Altspace and VRChat. I think this might be your first time actually practicing in VRChat. Could you tell us a little bit more about this particular ritual, and maybe if some people are interested in attending, will this be a public event, and how could they maybe go about contacting you?
So the ritual would be what's called an open full moon ritual. Which is in this particular time, it's the end of summer, beginning of fall. So it will be centered around the end of summer, fall type of thing. So there may be an activity. It's also open full moons mean it's a time where we open ourselves up and we look for new things in our life. To help us. So there may be some exercise kind of around that a particular ceremony. They can find us. I'm going to try and post it on the VRChat Discord where they can find it. It's technically a public ceremony. So you'll be able to click on that link and find us in VRChat is my understanding. I'm still kind of new at VRChat, so you'll all have to be kind of understanding of that. But that is our intention, and it will be, as I said, at 8:30. So here in VRChat, Ren did an amazing job of building our world. I got to give him credit for that. It is just absolutely beautiful. It encompasses all of the four major elements, wind, earth, fire, water, all within it. It's just absolutely amazing. And of course, we couldn't have that kind of thing in the real world. So it's just a beautiful place even to find solace and even if at some point you want to sit there and just do your own ritual or be comfortable within the world, you can do that. It's open to that because it is such a beautifully meditative world on top of that. So he did a beautiful job.
And I just wanted to add, just to demystify it a little bit. Well, while we're on the topic of giving credit, Whoop Whoop is the person who created all our worlds for Altspace. So shout out to Whoop Whoop wherever you are in the internet.
Which I've actually been to some of these worlds, and they're beautifully crafted. In fact, I think that's one that we actually attended in the wheat field.
Yeah.
Yes.
It was amazing.
And he also created our worlds for Burning Man, which is coming up the 22nd through the
Yeah.
7th, and we will have
Yeah.
having a ritual at Burning Man as well. And I will be reading tarot cards in Burning Man in the world that Whoop Whoop created for me
Mhm.
to be able to do that. So he's been wonderful in our alt space community for being able to help us with
But
World
to
Fair.
to answer your question about what rituals do we do for the full moon, I just wanted to, if you've never heard of it before, I just wanted to explain it a little bit. The moon is associated with sacred femininity. And you got to remember, everything is about connecting ourselves to nature in some way. So the moon tends to cycle in a period of about 22 days, which is similar to ovulation if you are.
It's 28
if you have
days. It's
ovaries.
28 days. Okay.
Oh, sorry, 28 days.
8 days.
But very similar cycle. So because of that, ancient people associated those two things. So for a lot of folks, it's a time to celebrate the goddess in different aspects. And for people that don't work with gods in any way, it's just about celebrating the energy of the sacred feminine.
Very cool.
I see.
Mm.
I will
Yes.
add that all the links will be put in this description.
Description.
Talking is hard to do. Yeah, description.
Honey. Honey, it's okay.
What?
English.
Mm. Oh my. But yeah, to both worlds, the times, the dates of the rituals and stuff like that. So you can go in and click the links that will guide you to whatever the Discord, the worlds, and stuff like that.
One thing that you'd mentioned that I think is kind of interesting is that you will actually be doing a ceremony at Burning Man. And for a lot of our audience, they probably don't actually realize that Burning Man has actually become a virtual event. I actually had attended one last year and was completely blown away with just the sheer scale of it. And they literally did not miss anything from an actual Burning Man event. But how is it going to be for you, especially with so many people from different points of views actually doing a ceremony at such a public event?
So, we have our worlds that Whoop has taken and put on the playa. The way I will be actually doing tarot card readings, live tarot card readings in the hub world. So if you pass by me and you would like to get your tarot cards read, please stop in and see me. As far as our other world, it's going to be connected to the hub world. People can go in there and see what our ritual space looks like. We will try and have people in there to answer questions, especially on the weekends, but Burning Man is a 24-hour a day, 2-week session, so we can't guarantee we'll have anybody in there all the time, but we'll try on the weekends to make sure that we have people in there to answer any of your questions. And then on the 6th, at 7 o'clock Eastern time, we will have a new moon ritual in our Burning Man space, and you'll just come through the portal like you normally would to get to our space in there, and we will have our ritual there. Our rituals, you could pack many, many more people in. It really doesn't. They're designed specifically to be as few or as many as happen to be there in our rituals. So that's what's really kind of good about it. And again, our rituals are open to any kind of pagan openness or earth religion. We don't denote specifically for any one particular gods or goddesses, and we do give you time within the ritual, if you'd like to speak their names or how you would like to practice your individuality in there in a common
Or even
time.
if you're not a pagan too, you're welcome to come and observe and participate if you wish.
I will
I'd
say
probably
the whole
put out a
tarot-
side note
Yeah.
for anyone who plans to attend some of these events, especially those in VRChat and in AltspaceVR. If you do want to attend these events, please be respectful the people and the event itself. These are cherished rituals, so please be respectful of that. And of course, stay quiet and stay where you're supposed to be during the rituals until after the ritual is actually done.
Be a dickhead.
Luckily, we haven't had too much of an issue with that in Altspace. But we do kick people if they're come in and they're yelling or they're disruptive. But it really hasn't been much of an issue so far. And we also try to give a diversity of events so that people who don't want to sit through a ritual or participate in a ritual, who aren't interested in that, we have other things. We have classes where you can learn how to do stuff, and we even have a group called Ghost Stories, Fairy Tales, Folklore, run by a person in our group called Teresa, and it's basically a campfire, and they tell stories and talk about ghost stories, fairy tales, myths, and folklore. Or we have Pagan chat, where we get together usually on Saturdays and discuss a topic and the different things that we all believe. And so, just check out our channel and see all the different events there, and you'll probably find something you're interested in.
Okay, very interesting.
One thing I would like to go back to is the tarot card reading. We were in that world too, and I saw that you're actually on the table. You had like a live stream of your hands and the cards as you lay them down and such. Do you think it's a thing that you could bring with you into VRChat? I don't know how things work in here with.
Right. So technically, Captain clued me into some new technology that's now available within VRChat that might make it possible to be able to do. So that may be a possibility. The equipment I've designed in Altspace, I designed myself to work to do that, so that you can see my actual hands, you can see the actual cards. When I do it, I ask you to tell me when you want me to stop shuffling, so that you have some input into it and you have that connection. You can see the actual cards. This is actually all technology I created myself in that world. I got to say, I'm pretty proud of. To be able to do just that, tarot card readings. It's now being used for a myriad of things, including teachings in schools and stuff like that. As far as bringing it into here, I would love to be able to do that. There is a tarot card world here that works fairly well. I mean, it's not as good as being able to read my own cards, but it works fairly well. But I would have to learn a little bit more about the technology in here. To see if we could rig anything to be able to do that and how we would do that in here.
Yeah.
In the meantime,
It's one of those
we
things
still
that's
have
just
Altspace.
easier in Altspace because, with VRChat, everything has to be created in Unity first and then uploaded in. Whereas in Altspace, we can edit our worlds while we're in VR. I could spawn that video player in any world that I own in a second.
So it's an interesting aspect.
Continue.
I was going to say it's a little different aspect because when we do our rituals in here, we have to plan ahead of time. We have to figure out what items we're going to use for our ritual ahead of time, so that we can have them brought into the world ahead of time. Whereas in Altspace, we can just go to many lists of items and just pick from those lists and then spawn it into the world to use at that time. And so it's a little bit easier. There's not so much planning ahead, but I would love to be able to bring my technology into this world. It's just learning a little more technical how to do that.
Yeah. That would actually be awesome if we could put that in here too.
That'd
Even
be
with the
amazing,
spawning
actually.
of the video player and audio player and stuff like that. Because I will say, for Quest users in here, that is very limited as it is right now with video players and stuff like that. So it could actually be a good addition to, like, put it in VRChat. But we are going to talk about that in a different show, because we're actually
Mhm.
gonna cover subjects like updates we want, like, don't like. So yeah,
Different
Right.
worlds and their
And
pluses and,
need- yeah.
minuses.
yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, and I would love to bring it in here, and hopefully maybe at some
Mhm.
point we can do that. And I can bring that technology into this world. And I'm not quite sure because I haven't seen yet, but I know that you preluded to a web projector that can be seen by Quest viewers. That is on the rise in here.
Mhm.
He's supposed to be sending me a copy of that so I can try it and see if I can get a web projector in the world. Then I can probably hook to that web projector and hook my camera to that web projector so that you can then see the cards being shuffled, and so that you can take part of the real world and connect it in with the virtual world and have that
Mhm.
crossover that right now we're kind of at a sticking point with in here.
Yeah.
So I would love
Excellent.
to
Yeah,
do
and we
that.
want to be able to bring more of our events in here too, like some of our classes that we've already done in AltSpace. We wanted to repeat them here. We're probably going to repeat them again in AltSpace because as our community keeps growing, more people are asking for some of the same topics. But we're still trying to figure out how that might look in VRChat, because there's at least in AltSpace, everything has to be, if you have an event, everything has to be optimized and formatted for all the platforms. And VRChat's kind of the wild, wild west. So we're trying to figure it out still.
You gotta find those happy mediums.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I
Well,
don't
anyway,
know if we do have more questions. 'Cause I
no,
kinda
I
hear
was
one coming.
I was actually going to say that if anyone has any closing remarks, or anything you'd like to add before we close this episode.
I just like to say that I'm looking forward to. I mean, admittedly, I'm an older person, and I'm like a way older person. We won't go into my age there, but I have a child right here. So that gives you a clue. But I would very much like to start working with some more of the younger generations, some millennials, Gen Zs, and be able to give them some of the knowledge that we have had. And that means coming to your world and learning about your world as well. So you can teach me about your world as much as I can teach you about some of these things and wisdom that I have in with the younger generation. So that's kind of why I'm here.
I
Excellent.
think a lot of younglings, as we kind of call them in here, would benefit a lot to have a positive community to come into, like way you guys are like so open-minded. You're kind of being greeted with virtual hugs, if you might say that.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of young people who seek guidance, who seek that
Mhm.
person, like inspiration and such, I would definitely recommend Pagan and your beliefs, your community, and everything like that, because it's a safe environment on so many level, like you said, so many flavors, that it doesn't really matter what background you come from. You can still be yourself, experiment, reach out to other beliefs in the same community. And I think a lot of younglings could use that today.
I know a lot of not a lot of the younger people that are looking for some kind of guidance, something to put at least a primer on their life, because especially even with my time in VR chat with a lot of the younglings and stuff like that, so many of them need a primer. They need some framework of life because they're going around lost, and a
stability.
lot of times it's just they need a community. They need a
Yeah.
community.
We are an intergenerational community. That's that's another hallmark of paganism, is that we have respect for the whole life cycle, so kids are welcome as well as adults. So, we try to acquiesce for that. But what I was going to say, to add on to what CompuBear had already said, is the purpose of what we're doing is to support people in their search for meaning. So if you are someone that is in VR and you're looking to learn more about this type of thing, or you're interested, come here. We're going to help you. We're going to point you in the right direction. My path might not be the exact same thing as yours, but I might know someone who is practicing the same tradition you're interested in, and I connect you. Or I can tell you some books to read. Or, I could tell you come to these classes and learn XYZ. And likewise, if you're somebody who is already knowledgeable and well trained and you want to teach other people, we will support you in doing that. And we already have in Altspace. Several of our classes have been people that are other than myself and CompuBear. The structure is here to provide for the community. That's why we're doing this. So hit us up on Discord and check out our channel on Altspace, Pagans in VR.
Right. And as you notice, we have all generations here sitting on the couch. So, obviously we are open to all, generations, both in we actually even have a new person that's going to help us lead our rituals as well, who signed on, who works well with youngerlings, their teacher. So we've just added them on to be able to help us specifically in VRChat, so that there are more of us to do this. But we have a whole bunch of people who have volunteered to do classes and things like that. And we're really
the older
open to
people
anybody
too,
coming
which is
to us.
exciting.
Yeah. Yeah. Coming to us and say you would like to help. We have a space for you.
Excellent.
Sounds amazing.
Nice. Very nice.
Well, if anybody have more to add, now is the time, or we're gonna close it.
See,
from
what
here.
do you think? I wanted to get Rossi's thought on it.
Well, I mean, I'm a big supporter of paganism anyway. I mean, I was for birth, I was christened Church of England. I don't follow the Christianity religion at all. Never have, even when I was a child and christened. My wife, ironically, is Catholic, but again, she is also very open-minded to everything that is religion. She doesn't literally follow the Catholic religion because she's christened Catholic and things like that. It's we're both very, I call it, diverse. I don't necessarily believe in there being one God. I believe that I would probably say I follow more of the paganism where it's spiritual, more than one thing to follow, rather than it just being, oh, no, it's this, nothing else. Move on, because it's not about for me just having the argument of who's right, who's wrong. It's what do you want to follow? What feels comfortable for you? What feels right for you? So, and that's what I love with, as I say, paganism, because that's what it's about. It's just beautiful. So, hats off to you guys for what you do.
Thank you. Ian, what do you think about what we're doing?
I'm just an open book. I'm open to everything. I go with the flow. If people want to do things that they want to do, they can do what they want. I'm not one of those people who tell you, like, hey, this is Christianity, you have to follow this. No. It's basically you do you. Boo boo, you do you.
Technical term, boo boos.
Ren, we haven't heard from you.
No.
Well, me, so I'm kind of in a lot of ways odd one on. I'm actually a convert to the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saint, which is, we've had our definite route with the Catholic Church. They kind of want to kill us type thing. But there's actually, if you really get deep into our things, there's a lot of stuff that we actually share, with the belief of, in some ways you could say the Holy Triad. the fact of the three different levels. There's, different things. And I believe, like for my church and stuff like that, we don't, we'll ask you to, hey, read this. If it's not for you, right. But there's so much about the pagan beliefs and stuff like that I truly love, especially the sense of community, especially the belief, because I think that's something, no matter what you believe in, there's something nowadays that's kind of missing in a lot of ways, and that is the belief in, if it's the pantheon, if it's, a single god, whatever. At least we're going into more of another super religion of science, which is kind of gotten away from its own truth, because science was a search for truth. If something is a theory until proven otherwise. But so much of that has been lacking, and I think that's leading a lot of people astray, and not realizing that there is something greater than us. There is a balance to the world. There is a beauty out there that I think so many, especially the younger generation, are missing on that beauty of life, and it's something we need to kind of get back to.
Well,
Okay.
we don't deny science as pagans in any way. I'm
Yeah.
very pro.
Neither do we.
Personally, I'm very pro science, very pro, especially right now, pro vaccines. Get your vaccine. But it seems that there is like a cult of atheism, if you will, that has latched on to science and said science doesn't allow for any kind of religious belief, and that's just not true. Science doesn't confirm or deny the existence of any god or goddess right now.
Exactly.
It doesn't exist
Exactly.
because that's it's a very personal thing. There's things that are universal truths that are observable by science, but and those we can't deny. And it's, I don't know if y'all are in the United States, but in my country, there's a lot of people who do. But we certainly don't do that in paganism.
Magic is just technology. We do not yet understand how it works. So I believe, even in my tarot card readings, that it is science, that it is based in some sort of science. It's just not one we understand how it works. Just as Newton knew that the apple fell from the tree, but he didn't understand the science behind how. So I do believe that there isn't a conflict, that it's just we don't understand how it all works yet. We can't see it. That doesn't mean it's not there. It just means we don't understand how it works yet. And that someday maybe they will find out more and more how some of this works. And they used to think herbs from the ground that were medicine were something that was magic. But we know today the science behind it, or in Manitou Springs, where you're from, there's 11 different kind of waters. And they used to think, the Native Americans used to think that was magic. Now we know today that the chemical makeup in each one of those mineral waters is a different mineral contact and actually helps different things in your body. So it's just technology. We don't yet understand how it works.
Yeah.
But I still wanted to hear from Toki too. Toki.
For me, I am baptized in the Christian belief, and where I live, there is a lot of Christians. Like, it was at the point I worked in like, how do you say, a hostel kind of thing, and it was also Christians who ran that place. If I didn't have the flag up by sunrise, I'll get a phone call. I see that your flag is not up, and if I didn't get it down before sundown, I was apparently hailing Satan. I am still in the church. I don't go to church. I don't believe in Christianity. I don't mind people who believe in that. But for me, it's still like that thing that there's more between heaven and earth that we understand. And I also, I kind of have this idea that even though we die, I still feel like we come back, maybe in a different body, maybe in a different mindset. Because for me, our personality, our spirit can't just be lost. Like, I can't grasp the whole, so am I not just gonna exist anymore? So it's kind of the reincarnation
Mm.
that I'm more towards, if you might say.
There's more in heaven and earth than can be dreamed of by many philosophies.
Well, and in the Jewish faith, there is no hell. That was actually a creation of Christianity, of a pope actually created the concept of hell. So in the Jewish religion, there is no hell, there is no Satan. Again, a pope creation. And my personal belief is that yes, we die, but we can remain here as spirits until we feel we no longer have a purpose here, and then we can go on, and then we can come back. That's my personal belief.
Well, reincarnation is, we know in the historical record, central to a lot of the ancient pagan religions, including my own. I also believe in reincarnation, different than how CompuBear just described, though. I think I don't necessarily choose to differentiate whether people come back as people again, or animals, or some other form of life, or whether they come here every single time. I think that we come back as many times as we need to learn whatever it is we're here to learn until we're done. And then, I think there's also some people who get to that point and then they turn around and help others to learn, because we're kind of all running a race together and we all can't really finish until we all finish. So your ascended masters like the Buddha or Taliesin in the Celtic tradition, or just maybe the gods, however you view them, are that. And I personally believe that many of the gods that we worship as humans were humans themselves once, that are just, they've been through it. They're on a higher level than us, and they're trying to help us get to where they are.
Yeah. But this is what happened when we have such a good talk and chemistry. We just keep on going. But I think if nobody else has any more to talk about, or last comment or something like that, I kind of think we would say thank you very much for coming on our
thank
show.
you.
It was really
CompuBears,
interesting.
Sam, Trey, it was an
Thank you for
absolute
having
pleasure
us.
having you on the show.
Yeah.
Thank you.
It's been awesome.
Thank
Thank
you for
you
coming.
so much for having us on the show and
Of
having us be here.
course.
Excellent. So everyone, thank you for joining us on this episode. Please be lookout for their event coming up. Please attend. Like I say, please be respectful of it. And until next week, we will see you for the next show. Have a great weekend. Please like and subscribe, share with everyone, and also please consider supporting us on our Patreon. We couldn't do this without you. And until next week, have a great one.
Lots of love. Bye.
Bye-bye. Toodle pip.
Bye.
Bye.
For 7 months now, we've been
Thank you,
happily
Sam.
together.
I'm
And
glad you could join
honestly,
us.
at this time,
Yeah,
I
It's nice meeting
cannot
you.
thank you enough. And I love
It's
you to
nice to
death,
meet you too.
to infinity and beyond, my love.
Right.
All right, I gotta run because I gotta go pick up a friend.
And this
from
is
the
what,
train
our
station.
9th
She's
episode?
coming to visit me.
Oh, okay.
10th.
Okay.
So
All right.
And it's our
I'll
10th
probably
video.
Be back on later, I think.
That's a bonus.
Okay.
So
May not be, but
everybody
I was gonna,
have a good one.
one,
And
I
me
can
and this lovely
take us
woman,
over there. We have the.
we're going to have a
let me
good
see
day.
if we have the new world put together or finished. Is the world finished? The new,
Potatoes.
pagan finished?
Potatoes.
I gotta run, y'all.